Hi friends, hello, happy Friday. Holy smokes, it's Friday. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for being patient with me with last week's live. We had a power outage. Yeah, someone hit the pole, so that happens, but I'm really excited to be here today. I've got a fun card mashup to send you into the weekend inspired. I'm going to mash up two stamp sets. I actually threw in a third, and I'm not quite ready to make holiday cards, but we're gonna make kind of a holiday card with a twist. Sort of. Hi, April. Got some people popping in. April says, hello, finally made the first live. Yay! Hello, hello from Kernersville, North Carolina. Hi, April. It's good to see you. It's very good to see you. So people are going to be popping in, and we're just going to go ahead and get started. But I wanted to share. A lot of you already follow me on the Instagrams and all the things, but you also have my many of you are on my email list, and I thank you for that. But the course, the watercolor course, hi Catherine, the Watercolor Wonderland course, online course that I've been talking about, it seems like forever, right? I think I've been talking about it since last November. My biggest, largest watercolor course ever is live in my classroom at craftyourjoy.com. And for anyone who's interested here on the live today, if you're on my email list, you already got a subscriber discount code if you're interested in the course. But if you are interested in the course and you're not on my email list, but you're here with us live today, I have a link. I have a code down below in the description for you for $10 off the course. So I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we're going to dive in. So hi, Lisa from Washington State. Hi, Robbie. Just got to work. Just got to work to pop in at work. Oh, just got to be able to pop in at work at beautiful Central California. Well, hello. It's fall here in Maryland. The leaves are starting to turn, although we've got some really nice weather. Loretta's here from St. Cloud, Minnesota. I put on a yellow sweater today, kind of to go with the card that we're going to do today. Yes, April did sign up yesterday, and I'm so excited for the class. The Watercolor Wonderland class that I mentioned is my biggest class ever. There's like 5 hours worth of instruction in that class. It's everything that I know about watercolor from my perspective, kind of really simplified to not make your head hurt. So super excited. Wendy said, have to multitask while listening. Connie, hello. Okay, we're going to get started. I'm kind of excited. I'm going to turn around here because I'm going to be a little goofy. Wendy says, it's been unusually warm here and dry in British Columbia. It's a little warm today, but there's a little crispness in the air. Not Christmas. It's October. I like to take my holidays one at a time. But we are going to do a little bit of a holiday card with a twist, or a season of joy card. But first I want to share my inspiration. So hello. This is a wreath that's on my front door. This is the wreath that I keep up all year round until it's time to put up the Christmas wreath or the winter holiday wreath. I love this, and it's kind of the inspiration for our card today. It's also the inspiration for my stamp set called Life with Zest, or Live with Zest. Life with Zest. Life with Zest. So we're going to get to it. We're going to go right to the down camera. You can ask questions along the way. We're going to do a little bit of watercoloring today with our Gina K dye inks. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Inktense blocks. We have talked about Inktense pencils on lives in the past. Today I'm going to talk about the blocks, just briefly. So April said, love me some lemons. I do too, and I think they're great for holiday projects. So, all right, let's dive in. I'm going to do a quick run through of the supplies. The supplies that I'm using today are also listed down below in the description. If you have any questions, it's right there. Okay, let's go. Let's go to the down camera. Okay. All right. I've got a lot of here, including the inspiration. So let's just start with the supplies I'm using. So I am using some Tranquil, ooh, looks like I got a little water on it. Some Tranquil Teal cardstock. I've got a card base layer cut with my Master Layouts die that I use all the time because I absolutely love it. And I've got an A2 sized card. Looks like I splattered water, but okay. I've got a piece of watercolor paper. I am using the Strathmore Ready Cut Watercolor. I know you all know I love this paper for paper crafting. It's listed down below. This is cold press, 100% cotton paper. Love it. We're going to be using that today. So those are my two paper stocks. Now let's dive into the stamps. I am using Season of Joy. This is my stamp set. I think this was last year. Might have been last season. We're going to use the sentiment here. Every season brings its joy. I'm not quite ready to put all my happy holidays and Merry Christmas stuff down on my cards yet, but I love this for getting ready for our holiday season. Now, the stamp set mashup, we're going to be using these two stamp sets, Joy in the Ordinary, which is my new stamp set with Gina K Designs, and Live with Zest. I can't even remember what my own set's going to be called. We're going to be using the lemons, going to be using the leafery, and for Joy in the Ordinary, we're going to be using the paper lantern as kind of an anchor point for a pseudo quasi ornament, maybe? Okay. And so let's just go ahead and move that to the side. I've got this new embossing folder, this Gingham embossing folder. I'm going to show you a sample of a card I did with it, but I'm not going to be using it today, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. I ended up changing my mind literally about a half an hour before I went live. So that happens. Cheryl has popped in from Kirkland, Washington. Hi, Irma. Okay, I've got some sequins and embellishments, some glue. I've got this new Gina K Designs like picking tool. I think it's called a picking tool. It's got this wax side to it and like the picky thing, the picker part on this side. Friends, I feel like I've waited forever for this tool because I am so challenged when it comes to putting on my sequins and embellishments that I'm just super excited to use it. Okay, now my inks. I've got a bunch of inks here that we're going to be using. I've got Obsidian. That's my favorite black because we're going to be doing a little bit of watercoloring. This is great for my sentiments. I've got Red Velvet. I've got Wild Dandelion. This is my yellow. It matches my sweater. Sort of, right? It matches my sweater. Got my fall sweater. We're using Wild Dandelion. I'm using Fresh Asparagus. And we're going to do some tone-on-tone stamping with Tranquil Teal. So got all the inks, all the fun stuff out here. And they're all listed below. And I'm going to be using this new die called Holiday Toppers. We're going to use this one. I already pre-cut it for us. When this came out, I was like, holy smokes, I saw it. So many different abilities to use it for different things. And I was just like, I'm just going to order it. So I did, and we're going to use it today. So this is what the little die looks like. Love it. All right. Now, let's talk about the inspiration other than the big lemon wreath that I wrapped around my head in the very beginning to be a little goofy. So here is the card inspiration. I'm doing a little bit of a mashup. I shared this card on the live, on the live when the new stamp set launched. So I wanted to, as you know, I like to do mashups with my stamp sets. All of my stamp sets are in proportion to each other, so they're super fun and easy to mash up with. So I started looking at this and I'm like, what do I really love on this card? Well, I really love all of the tone-on-tone starburst backgrounds to create that pattern, which we're going to do a little bit of patterning today. And I really love this concept of using the paper lantern as an ornament. So then I took it a step further. And here, hi Cherie, you didn't miss anything. Oh, you missed me wrapping my head around the wreath. I'll do it again at the end, just for funsies. Okay, so then I made this card and I was like, oh, I'm digging this. This is what we're going to do today. But, and I used that new Gingham embossing folder. Look at that, friends. Absolutely love that for that red tone on tone look here. Loving it. And I wanted to create this kind of look of an ornament without being super holiday yet. Kind of an in-between, kind of a get ready. So I prepared everything, I cut everything out, and then literally a half an hour before I went live, I changed my mind. I changed my mind because I really love the Tranquil Teal color palette with these colors and the reds. I love this color combination for the holiday season. All the time, always, we're always thinking about reds and greens for the holidays. Well, I've got some greens and yellows and some reds in here. And when it's paired up with that Tranquil Teal, you get a little bit of like a retro kind of color palette. So we're going to dive in. Oops, let's go ahead. Let me just go ahead and put this card in front of me. We're going to dive in and start with our stamping. Okay. Now, I've got my, where are they? Here we go. We're going to start with, I'm just going to get everything stamped, and then we're going to do some coloring of our lemons. So I have lemons, I have my leafery, and I have my paper lantern. So I'm going to start with these pieces first, and then I'm going to do the watercoloring and do our paper lantern last. So I've got my amalgam here. Irma says it looks velvety. Yes, it does look velvety, but I love that combination of colors, the red and the Tranquil Teal. So let's go ahead and get our lemons all stamped up. Let's see, did I bring anything to clean this? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Judy said, good morning. We'll have to catch this later. Looks very interesting. Yes, no worries, friends. The replay will be available always. And I will also post the replay in all the social medias, you know, over in the Gina K group. We'll post it there as well. All right, I've got my lemons. Oh, friends, I really need to clean my stamps. I really need to give them a nice bath. Okay, now I'm going to stamp out my leafery. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to bring in my leafery, and I'm going to use red velvet. I like to use either red velvet or cherry red. I love both colors. I grabbed red velvet first. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink this up and just stamp it out. And again, I am stamping on the Strathmore 100% cotton paper. And I am going rogue and doing it without the Misty. Now, I could do it with this 100% cotton paper. It doesn't have, it's cold pressed paper, but it doesn't have like that super crunchy texture that some other 100% cotton papers have, or cold pressed papers in general. So I feel like I can get, if I get my stamp juicy, I can get a good impression without using the Misty. So that looks pretty good, right? I kind of love that. Now, real quick, one of the things that you can do, if you don't like, I've got a little paintbrush here with a little bit of water. If you don't like that you've got a little bit of white from the paper showing, you can just touch that ink. The Gina K inks are water soluble, you know, water reactive. You can just touch the tips of that and kind of blend that out a little bit if you don't like the white. showing. I don't mind it. So just wanted to kind of give you that tip that those inks, and most inks are like what most all inks are, have that water resistant, unless they're not water resistant, water soluble. So, but these, the reason why I love Gina K inks, and we're going to watercolor with them today, is because they are so, they just kind of whoosh with water, which makes them really, really nice. Okay, now we're going to do some watercoloring in a couple different ways. I just realized that I did not allow myself enough room here for my paper lantern. So let's go ahead and get that out. Now, this next thing I'm going to show you is not super magical, but it's something I often forget to do. Something I often forget is possible. So I'm taking my wild dandelion. I've got my paper lantern from the Joy in the Ordinary stamp set, and I'm just inking this up and getting it nice and juicy with wild dandelion, which is my favorite yellow in the Gina K line. I'm just going to stamp this down. Okay. Now, I could have done this in Obsidian, and then we could have colored it in. But this is what we're going to do. I've got a little bit of water here. And I just got finished talking about how you could just add a little bit of water right there to blend out the ink. We're going to do the same for the paper lantern. I've got a brush. So my brush is wet, my paper is dry, and I am just going to activate. I'm going to turn this way so that everybody can see. I'm just going to activate the ink. I'm going around this one edge. I'm adding a little bit of water and I'm flicking out, and I'm just cleaning my brush, keeping it nice and wet. And I'm just going to flick out around the edges here. And all I'm doing is using the ink as a watercolor paint. And what I'm going to end up getting is a nice variation of lights to darks. So you can see it's kind of intense over here on this side. And I love that wild dandelion for its intensity. Cleaning my brush and then just kind of pushing out and blending out to the very edge. I'm going to preserve some of the whites over here, but this is something I often forget is possible and it's a quick and easy watercolor technique. Now I've got these hard lines over here. I'm just taking the tip of my brush. Robbie just said that is so cool. I know, isn't it? It's just like, hello. If we want to do some really quick and easy watercoloring, this is a really fun way. So the stamp has kind of blurred out. I've kind of blurred out my edges, the hard lines. This is going to make this a really ideal spot for me to stamp my sentiment because those hard lines aren't so prominent. And I've got this kind of light bulby look and feel for my ornament. And I'm loving it, digging it. We're going to put it over to the side here and just let that dry because I'm going to run it through the die cutter. I am going to die cut live, friends, die cut live. I actually just have it off to the side here. Okay, so now we're back to the lemons. Okay, here it is. So I have some wild dandelion and I also have a re-inker. I'm going to take the re-inker. If you don't have the re-inker, all you have to do is smoosh some of the wild dandelion or the color of your choice down onto your mat or your glass or the surface or wherever you're working. I'm going to give this a quick just shake. And then I'm just going to pop a few drops of that down. Hi, Marita. No worries, no worries, no worries. The replay is always available. Now this technique I'm going to do is wet on wet. So first I'm going to paint my lemon. I'm going to paint my lemon, and I'm also just kind of not what I call smoothie painting it. So I'm dropping water in, And I've showed this technique before many times. You can see that the Obsidian color is not, I'm painting right to the edge and it's not moving. So I'm going to bring this up so you can see how I've got the water on there, but I'm also leaving some white from the paper. I'm going to just get this a little bit juicy and just start working with it. And let's see, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to drop it in and watch how, what I really love with watercoloring with the Gina K inks is that they kind of act a lot like watercolor in general, right? They act very, very similarly. They're very super vibrant. They swoosh. I'm going to do a little swoosh. They swoosh. So here's some water over here on the side. And I'm going to add it. And they swoosh and spider when you add it. Add the water. So this technique is called wet into wet. My brush is wet. My paper is wet. The area in which I'm painting is wet. And I'm just going to go ahead and let that be and let that dry. Love that whoosh. Really easy going. All right. I'm going to take a little bit of that. I'm going to take this off so I don't end up getting everything in there. Cheryl says, love the illusion of the lines after adding water to the lantern. Yes. Look at that. How this is drying and see how it smooths it out. That also adds a lot of extra texture and dimension because we've got that illusion going, as Cheryl has said. So, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and paint some of my greenery in using fresh asparagus. I don't have the re-inker for fresh asparagus. Thought I did, but don't. So I'm going to go ahead. My brush is wet and clean. And I'm just going to paint in some fresh water to these cute little leaferys. The little leafery elements. Adding a little bit of water to the dye ink here. And then just dropping it in and letting it do its thing. To coax it a little bit. And I'm leaving some of the whites from the paper. Because when it dries, it'll bloom and it'll give this, it gives a little added extra texture and dimension to the leafery. Okay. Let's go ahead and, oops, got a little bit of that, the yellow is starting to, the yellow wants to come out to play over here in the leafery, so we'll just let it do its thing. Okay. Now I got a little bit of that green right there. If you get some color in an area where you don't want it to be, just clean off your brush and then just kind of mop it up. Mop it right up. Robbie said, oh, I'm so here for this. I know I'm going to have to do this over the weekend. Yes, this is easy breezy watercoloring, right? And if you don't have a ton of watercolor supplies, you use your inks especially the Gina K inks, or, if you have distress inks, or any kind of ink that will work with water. Remember our inks like amalgams don't work with water. They stay where you put them. But all those different kinds of inks, and I love the Gina K inks for this. I feel like her line of inks are very super transparent and they're very, very close to actually using watercolor. Marita said, what a great idea, using her inks for watercolor. And I know that I've done it before in other videos and lives, but it is a go-to. I keep coming back to it because it is so fun and easy. Now, we're going to add a little bit of extra color to this. Once this dries, you could add more yellow to it and continue to layer on top of it. That's a technique called glazing and layering, and I've talked about that before. But I want to bring in, as always, I want to do a little watercolor lesson, a little something new, maybe new to you, right? I'm going to talk about Inktense. Now, I've talked about Inktense pencils before. And we did a whole like tutorial on Inktense pencils, and I feel like maybe we did lemons before as well. I'm not sure. But these are the Inktense blocks. And I am going to do a technique with them where I'm shaving them. Now this is called a Derwent sprinkler, but literally it looks like a cheese grater, right? So I'm taking the block and just grating the pigment right into a little dish here. You can also do this same thing with sandpaper. Just something that's coarse that you can just rub it up against. You could do this with your pencils as well. Watercolor pencils, Inktense pencils, any kind of water soluble pencil. If you want to just work with the pigment, you can do this with that little grater, little cheese grater, right? Or sandpaper. Now, super simple. I'm adding water to the shavings and it becomes a paint, right? So the beautiful thing about Inktense is that they're super, super vibrant, right? This is a beautiful match for the wild dandelion. Super vibrant, but they when they dry, they're permanent, so you won't be able to move them. Like watercolor, when it dries, you're able to kind of move it and noodle with it a little bit. But Inktense is not like that. Inktense is an ink, so when it dries. But the fun thing I want to show about this technique is I want to show this shaving technique. I am going to use this Inktense to intensify my lemons a little bit. But right now I'm just painting a wash of white. No, not white. A wash of water, which is clear, except this has got a little bit of a yellow tinge to it. And when you can take the shavings, I'm just going to do a little bit of these shavings right into my water here to get a little texture and dimension. I'm digging that. I'm loving that. So the pigment is sitting in the water and it just adds a little extra texture and dimension. And when it dries, it's going to be like splatter. Like an easygoing way to do some splatter. We're going to do this. I think if it works like it's working in my head, we're going to do this on our final card. Okay. Now, I want to come back in to my lemons and get my lemons and get my leafery run through the die cutter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and but before I do that, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and run them through the die cutter. That's off to the side. And I'm going to bring back in, I've already kind of pre-cut these so that we can talk about them. I'm going to bring back in my lemons and bring back in my leafery. So digging my leafery, going to stick it on its side. Here are my lemons after they dried. I also took the stamp. Let's grab that stamp. Cheryl said, will the shavings reactivate the second time on the palette after it's dried? Yes, these will reactivate. This will reactivate. It's when it dries on your surface, your paper or any other surface that you're using, that you're not able to reactivate it. So this shaving technique that we did here with the Inktense shavings, you can do that with your watercolor pencils too. And it's like, imagine if you were stamping something and you were doing like ground, like a ground or like dirt or something like that, and you wanted that texture. That would be really cool. So, hi Cheryl from North Carolina just popped in. Okay, so this little lemon right here, I stamped this little added texture on that lemon. Now we're going to go back in. We're going to add another layer of color. So you could do this. I'm going to do this first. Just kind of show you. I'm going to take a little bit of this wild dandelion. You're welcome, Cheryl. Take a little bit of this wild dandelion. We're going to do some layering. I talked about glazing and layering. I'm going to go ahead and just take, my brush is wet, my lemons are dry, taking a little bit of the wild dandelion, and then I'm just adding it a little bit more color around this edge. And just kind of dropping it in like that. But that's okay. I've cleaned off my brush, and then I'm going to smooth it out a little bit. So another thing about painting, watercolor painting with your inks, is that you can get that transparency that you would get with watercolor, but you can also get that nice layering. So I've got some really nice variation from dark to light. So that's one lemon down. Let's move this over here. And I'm going to do this one. So my brush is wet, my paper is dry, and I'm going to add in a little bit of color here. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. Just kind of draw that over a little bit. Digging it, leaving it. So I got a little bit of dark to lights. I'm going to let those dry. And I want to show you what adding a lot of water to that color when I did the fresh asparagus. I'm leaving this. Sometimes this texture bothers people. It's called blooming. So what it meant was I had a lot of water on my brush and I had a lot of water on the surface here in the leafery. So the paint blooms and it tries to find the edge. So I end up getting the hard edges. And I love it because I think it adds a lot of extra texture and dimension. Some people don't love it. Some people want that smoothie blend. So look, like, take a look at this lemon right here. See how it bloomed? It went whoosh. Watercolor only goes where the water is, and you can see that right here. See the water? Watercolor only goes where the water is. So it tries to find the edges. And if you smooth it out with your brush, you can smooth it out. Or if you leave it alone, you end up getting that bloom. And I love the bloom because I feel like it adds a lot of extra texture and dimension to your project, which, you know, I'm all about the stamps being the star of the show. And then we use watercolor mediums and we use other ways to add more texture to our project. Okay, now I need to run this baby through the die cutter. I just had a thought, but I'm going to save that thought for a moment. I'm going to run her through the die cutter right here over on my edge here. So you're going to hear me. I've got my Spellbinders Platinum 6. She is such a good die cutter. Run this through, ran it through forward, and the table's shaking a little bit because I am running it through. And let's bring her out. All right, here she is. Yes, Cherie said more realistic. Yes, more realistic greens. Here's another tip when we talk about realistic greens in watercolor. If you are painting with your Gina K inks and you're looking to get greens that are a little more like real life greens, go with fresh asparagus because it's got a little bit more yellow in the green. And when it dries, it's a lot more realistic to the greens, the kind of greens we find in nature. Okay. All right, I'm loving this. Oh, look at that die cut. I love it. All right, here's my experiment. And hopefully it will work in my head the way I think it is. Or hopefully it'll work in real life the way I think it is working in my head. Sometimes that doesn't work out. But, you know, I'm going to get my brush wet. My paper is dry. I'm a little concerned about this. I'm a little concerned about my thought here. Before we do that, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I'm wondering if everybody thinks I'm going a little bit bonkers. So I have every season brings its joy. And I'm going to I should get out my Misty so that I can make it lined up. But I'm just going to do the joy part first. And that'll be my anchor. I'm stamping my sentiment first. because I want to do that little Inktense splatter thing, but I want to make sure I get my sentiment down here first. So I've got Joy in some Obsidian, and I am shooting for the center area here. My lemons and leafery are going to go around the edges, and I've kind of made a nice spot right here in the center for the Joy. So here we go. I'm committing. It's here, it's committed. Boom. Love it. Okay. Digging it. Digging it, digging it. Okay. Friends, we have 27 of us here today. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me that you would take the time to come out. So I hope you get a lot of value out of this tutorial today. Gloria says, I love you're in the moment. You know what, Gloria? Sometimes my brain has, like, I get these ideas and I can visually see them in my brain, and then I go to do them and I'm like, ooh, that did not work out the way I thought it was going to be. And like I said at the top of the hour, every season brings its. I'm gonna stamp that right above it. Oh, got a little too close to the O, but that's okay. I'm rolling with it. I still love it. At the top of the hour, I said that in the last minute, like a half an hour before the live, I changed my whole color palette. So, you know. Okay. So the thing about this is I've got these lines going this way. So it kind of, and my Joy kind of goes this way. So we're going to noodle with it when I put it down on the piece. Wendy says this happens to me all the time. It happens to me all the time, but you know what? It's a handmade card. If it looked perfect, it would be printed and 100 people would have proofed it and made sure it was good to go. But then it's lost all of its beauty and its hand quality. Okay, I'm getting my brush wet, and we're going to try this little, I'm just adding a little bit of water around the edge here. I don't know about this. I want to get some splatter going, but I don't know if this technique's going to work, but I'm going to give it a go. Okay, I've got my Inktense, and I'm just kind of shimmy some of that color down. Ooh, I think I'm going to like it. Ooh, I think I'm going to like it. I just wanted to add a little bit of texture. Now, I've got some of that in the Joy. Just going to lift that out. I kind of like it. I didn't think I was going to like it at first, and I kind of like it. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to let it dry, and then we'll see how we feel about it. And if I boogered it up, I boogered it up. It's just the way it's going to be. All right, we're going to get ready. We've got all of our elements here. And I'm going to talk about tone-on-tone pattern stamping. I've kind of talked about quite a bit today. We're doing a little bit of watercolor with dye inks. We're doing a little bit of watercoloring with Inktense and this funky little splattery-like technique. So now we're going to do some tone-on-tone pattern stamping. This is the sample I showed at the top of the hour where I did that here. And what it does is it adds that extra layer of dimension, and the stamps are the star of the show here. I love this technique. I love tone on tone. There's two ways you can do it. Your color that of your stamp ink matches your paper completely. This is Tranquil Teal. This is Tranquil Teal. You could also use embossing ink and stamp with like the watermark embossing ink, like a Versamark or the Gina K embossing ink, and you'll achieve that tone on tone look. So don't fret. If you have watercolor, if you have a paper, cardstock, and you don't have the matching ink, use your embossing. Use your embossing ink. Hi, Anne. Okay, hello from the UK. These colors are lovely. I'm digging them. Look, I think look at that yellow wild dandelion and this Tranquil Teal, and then we're going to have that pop of red. Oh boy, look what I just did. Anyway, digging it, loving it. Now we're going to do some pattern stamping. Now I know that I'm going to have my lantern kind of be in this general area. So I'm going to focus my pattern. I could do it all over the edge, but I'm going to focus my pattern going this way because I do want a little bit of a breathing room for the eye over here. So I'm going to take the Starburst stamp from Joy in the Ordinary, and I love this little Starburst flower, and we're just going to start stamping. And I'm going to start stamping off the page. Let's go ahead and get this off because that's going to end up on something I don't want it to be on. And now I'm just going to take the stamp and just kind of rotate it a little bit and start stamping. Just kind of nesting them close to each other. Rotate a little bit. Oh boy. I think I just, no, I did it. There we go. Rotate it a little bit. Oh, I'm such a sloppy stamper sometimes. I got a little bit of ink there on the edge and just kind of come off here a little bit and just keep doing that pattern around the edge here. Gonna bring this in. Oh, I'm digging it. And here's this Stardust, I got excited. Starburst is giving me the perfect center points for some gemmies, some little gemmies in the end. Okay, now I've got some white space here, which is going to be great for when I put this piece down. I want a little bit of white space, so we've got that pattern going here. But something is calling to me to add a little something to that top corner. So just very slight edge. I've added a little something to that top corner. And I'm going to do the same just right here in this little bottom corner. These corners are wide open and I'm going to keep them wide open. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't get that ink I lied, all over me. Okay, now I'm digging my pattern. Loving it, keeping it, leaving it. Going to bring in my cardstock and we're going to do some layer to layer here. So this is my base layer. Love this tone on tone look. What do you think about it? Oh, Marita said, are you using Gina K's Amalgam ink? Because you're, yes, Marita, I used Obsidian. And that's what I always use, Obsidian or Jet Black or one of the dark amalgams when I want to watercolor because it won't move. You could use, I can't remember that other ink. There's a couple inks on the market, but I cannot remember them for the moment, like the other inks. I just love using that amalgam. It's consistent, works every time. I've got some tape here, some foam tape, pretty low profile foam tape. Cherie said nice. Yes, digging it. This is probably a little more foam tape than what you need, but you know, that's okay. Cheryl said, I use tone on tone often. I really love the subtle look. Yes. And it just creates, it's like creating your own pattern paper. Am I right? You're creating your own pattern paper. Holy smokes. I just can't seem to get my fingernails underneath here. Versifine. Cherie, yes, Versifine will work with watercolor, but I believe you gotta heat set it. That's a good question, but Versifine I think will work. Can't think of the ink. I'm looking at the ink that I'm thinking of over there on my ink wall, but of course I can't. The words aren't coming, which often happens to me. Okay, I'm gonna lay this down. I love using the Master Layouts die for this tone on tone look. Look at that, very low profile. We've got our pattern here. Ah! I'm digging it. Is it straight? Maybe. Sometimes all these lines here kind of throw my brain off a little bit. All right, this is the next layer we're going to put down. Now, I'm seeing, because I did that little shaving thing, I'm seeing that I've got a couple of little like hard edges. Remember I talked about watercolor color just is looking for its edge. So if you get that, now Inktense, if this dried and it was Inktense, you wouldn't be able to blend that out. But look at how easily I was able to blend out that hard edge with the Gina K inks. Okay, it's a little bit wet. I'm going to zap it with the heat tool. So hold on. I'm going to step off camera real quick and zap it just to dry it up. That's quick. Okay. Perfect. Perfect, 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 perfect. Now, those ink, that little splattery piece is kind of nested in there. I'm digging it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I dig it yet, but we're going to just roll with it. And I want to see all my other pieces glued on. I've got my glue. Literally this bottle, I am so pleased with this bottle. It does not clog. This is one of those Gina K Designs bottles. I've talked about this before. I'm super heavy-handed with adhesive. That's why I don't use tape runners, because I go through them too quickly. And I love the Gina K glue because it gives me time to move things around. I'm using this right here, this little arc I've got going here, to just kind of pop that in. Oh boy. You see how Joy's a little bit crooked? I'm just going to turn this paper lantern just a smidge, just so she looks like she isn't crooked. And that's okay. She's going to be just fine. Now, the next thing I'm going to put on here is the topper. And even though the paper lantern, the perspective of it right here is a little wonky, when I put the topper on here, it's going to even it out. So this is just, I'm self-correcting. I love this color combination. I'm just getting really excited with this Tranquil teal and this yellow. I'm going to add this little topper. Now, in the Joy in the Ordinary stamp set, there is a stamp that is a topper. But I'm playing with this new toppers die set from Gina K that I shared at the top of the hour. All right, I'm going to add this right here. Plop that on. And there we go. Now, I just cut that with a piece of metallic cardstock that I had in my stash. You could cut it with any. Vellum would be really nice too. So that was from the Holiday Toppers. This Holiday Toppers. That is this little guy right here. I'm loving these bows. I just see so much versatility with these, even other than ornaments, even though they're called Holiday Toppers. Okay, now we're going to start to nest. I'm getting excited because I really, really like this. Now I'm going to use the topper. I put the topper on next because I'm going to use it for my anchor. It's my anchor point for the design to kind of tell me where I want to put things. So I'm going to take this piece of the red velvet greenery, the leafery. Look at that color combination. And I'm going to nest it right up to it. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue here. Woohoo! Okay. Here we go. I'm going to nest it right up to it. I'm just going around the edges. This stamp just kind of goes this way anyway. It just naturally goes in that circle. Now I'm going to add my big lemon, my big honkin' lemon. And she is going to lay over top of the leafery. And I've also got a little bit of the advantage here of her kind of lining up with the Joy stamp. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of glue to the bottom here. Oh, I dropped it. Got glue everywhere. No worries. Okay, I'm also letting the lemon, I use different parts of the stamps to use as my anchor points. So see how the tip of the lemon is here, And I'm kind of using that edge of the paper lantern there to just kind of nest her. And I kind of like it. Digging it, digging it. Now, I'm going to continue around and I'm going to nest the next lemon up underneath here. She's going to go off of the edge of the card here, but just touch that bottom edge. So we're breaking, from the design perspective, we're breaking our grid of what the card layer, the card base layer, the card layer, and then the card base. We're breaking our grid a little bit. I'm going to lift her up and nest her right underneath, and then just give her a little twist so that the corner, like the little bottom part of the lemon, just kind of lines right up with the bottom part of that die cut. And I'm starting to get a wreathy like look and feel with my lemons. Ah, I love it. And now I'm going to nest this piece of red velvet leafery right around the paper lantern edge. I'm getting excited. I'm trying not to over glue because I'm just getting glue everywhere, right? Okay. Now I'm going to bring her underneath here. I'm also using the very, very tip of the J. I'm moving in and just moving in as close as I can to just create that relationship between the leafery and the J, but without covering the S. But then I've got that nice little relationship going here with the design. I don't want to cover that S so much. So let me move that out. Okay. Oh, I love it. Now, this little bit of leafery is hanging off the edge. You could keep it if your envelope was big enough, or if I'm going to trim something like that, go rogue and trim it, I turn it over and then use my scissors and follow my edge of my card and just trim it off. So it looks like it's part of the design and it's just bleeding off. It actually is part of the design, but it's just bleeding off the card edge. So we've got all of these layers. We've got this card layer, the base card layer, then this first layer, then we've got all of these elements just kind of popping up, creating extra texture and dimension. Ah, I love it. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in some sequins. Look at my hands with all the glue. Where are my sequins? Here we go. We're going to bring in some sequins. Now on my sample, I kind of nested some sequins in here, and I used the Gingham emboss folder to just kind of tell me where my placement, kind of show me where my placement of my elements were going to be. That's a really great idea with your embossing folders or with your stamps. Let the stamp or the embossing folder tell you where the embellishment needs to go. So in this design, the starbursts are telling me that they want something in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of this and push this out. We're kind of pushing the time a little bit, but that's okay. And I'm going to use the new picker thing, the new pick tool. This pick tool has, this is like wax. So it makes it really easy to kind of lift up your sequins. And I am super challenged with the lifting and the placing of sequins. So this tool has been really helpful. I'm going to add a little dot of glue right here. I'm going to add one right here. I'm going to add one right here. So I'm starting to do a little cascade down. Then I'm going to bring one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go down here. So I've got this little kind of cascade going down my card. All right. I'm going to flip over my sequin. Catherine said unique and pretty. Flip over my sequin and lift her up. And then this is just, it doesn't stick. What I really love about this little tool is that you just plop these sequins down. I'll pop a big one right here. Take another little bitty one and pop that. Let me get that flipped over. They just don't, here we go, Lisa's challenge, getting her sequins flipped. Okay, it just releases and it doesn't stick to the tool, which makes it kind of cool. Loving that. Loving that. Gloria said, thanks for the inspiration. Okay, so here we are. Here's our final card. I am loving it. Okay, let's just get in a little close to look at that little shaving texture. Meh, I don't know. I kind of like the idea in my head, but I think next time I might not do it because I do like the added texture and dimension. I think there's some nice contrast here with the watercoloring that we did, but I could take it or leave it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Take it or leave it. But here's the final card. I'm digging it. It's kind of, I'm not quite ready for the full on holiday spirit kind of cards. So this is getting me ready. And I also get to do some really fun mashups with stamp sets. So loving that. Okay. Let's just go ahead back to the front camera. Hello, hello, friends. So fun card. Great mashup, right? Love the color palette. Remember, the original inspiration was super red and yellow, which I love too. But that Tranquil Teal just adds a little something extra because we can do that pattern in the background. Okay, and remember the original inspiration, I think Cherie asked, anybody who missed it in the beginning, here was the original inspiration, this beautiful lemon wreath that sits on my front door. So Cheryl said one holiday card at a time. Yes, exactly. One holiday card at a time. It's October and I still feel like we should be celebrating fall. So we're going to just ease into our holiday card season one stamp at a time. Okay. We are really close to the end of the hour. I'm so grateful that you could all join me today. So grateful. It really warms my heart. It brings me so much joy to come live to you. And I hope you got a few techniques along the way and got a lot of value out of today's tutorial. Thanks everyone. I'm getting all these really nice comments. Anne said beautiful card. Irma said thank you. Robbie said love me some lemons. I do too. The lemon stamps are in the Life with Zest stamp set, and I hope you really enjoyed that mashup of all of the different stamps that I did today. Yes. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and sign off. I hope you really enjoyed today's tutorial and that you are going to, this inspiration will carry you into the weekend to craft your joy. And I will be back next week. So if you're on my email list, you'll get that information right to your email box. And I'll also post it out in the social medias. The replay will also be live if you missed the beginning, and you can watch it at any time. And if you are interested in my new course, the Watercolor Wonderland online course, I do have a discount code for you down in the description. So have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you got a lot out of today's tutorial and it inspired you. So super excited to share this with you today. So grateful and have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.